It's my second time doing George Michael Going to a Town because midway halfway through my reaction, the first time I didn't get round to the lyrics. Internet problems. The worst thing about living in a listed building like this is we have the not high-speed broadband but the old. So sometimes that circle goes round and around, and yesterday, so today, fingers crossed, we all get going. Going to a Town was the most popular cover song voted on Instagram by George Michael's fans, and that caught my attention because I wanted to do actually a reaction, a live version to Jesus to a Child, simply because it was my favorite. And then I thought, well, if all the fans are voting for Going to a Town, it has to be equally as special, simply because he's the greatest male vocalist, pop, commercial, mainstream vocalist of all time. He truly is. There's nobody like him. People have their different genres. Jonathan Antoine, who's I feature a lot on my playlist and on my channel, he's the Britain's Got Talent winner, and he's gone on to develop a voice that I simply say is one of the best tenors in the world today, and in years to come will be the best tenor when other tenors step back. Now, George Michael, let's get going. This is a Rufus Wainwright song, and this is what I have to say about this. And I'd like to thank Brendan Vivers for his summarization of this particular video. In my research, I found this, and this is what he has to say. I want to give you the actual website because he is renowned for sound, and it's by Brendan Vivers' summary. For a songwriter, having one of your songs covered by an artist, he says, really does have to be one of the greatest forms of flattery. Here, Brendan. When it's someone as credible and iconic within the music world as George Michael. Well, that certainly is a career highlight for any artist. Going to a Town is a song written and recorded by Canadian-American singer-songwriter and lyric extraordinaire, I'll add, Rufus Wainwright. Originally penned for the musician's 2007 studio album Release the Stars and released as the album's lead single, the track crept from Wainwright's repertoire into the nurturing hands of the Wham superstar, legend that he is, to form part of his symphonic tour and album release. Not just content with covering the track on stage, Michael offered fans and music lovers alike the recorded cover as the album's sophomore single. Having heard Michael perform, says Brendan, this live track, the number always stood out as one of the finer additions to the setlist of this Symphonica tour, and a song befitting for the music veteran and global icon to cover. So it's understandable why he would take it to the next level and release the track as a single to help push the Symphonica collection. The original version of Michael's take in it aren't too dissimilar, says Brendan. The number is led by a melancholic and simple piano spine, but the key to Michael's rendition is the orchestral backdrop and frequent cinematic peaks. You'll see the cross come on, the love come on. I've seen the images. In at the back, the setting, the whole atmospheric setting, he says, is a peak that enters the track midway through, as well as his use of backing vocals who add a dramatic feel to the turmoil-fueled and angst-heavy track. The tone is dark and Michael's delivery of the track is nothing short of spectacular, but then again everything the Faith hitmaker touches has always turned to gold, and this track is no exception. Brendan Vivers from the website Renowned for Sound, I am absolutely now really engaged in what you've just said to get going with this. The lyrics are in front of me, but again I just want to make people realize that Rufus Wainwright is, from his repertoire, this song, one of the greatest songwriters, producers of music ever that the music industry has ever embraced. His whole family, mother, father, sister, are renowned musicians. and writers within their own right. He has, Rufus Wainwright, recorded 10 studio albums, in case you've never heard of him. And Wainwright's self-titled album was released through DreamWorks Records way back in 1998. Now move forward, and he's done Shakespeare Sonnets. That was the 10th album, called Unfollow the Rules, which was released in 2020. Wainwright is the son of musicians London Wainwright III, American, and Kate McGarrigle from Canada, and the older brother of Martha Wainwright. I think that speaks for itself. What does Wainwright say about his own single that George is covering? This is what he says. The song is an emotional reaction to a lover you had a fight with. And it's about mourning and moving on to bigger and better things. Keep that in mind, because George Michael went through a lot. He's had very, very high highs, and he's had the very, very lows. I personally think the worst thing, God rest George Michael, he ever did was sit in front of Oprah and talk about the toilet incident, which I felt was both degrading to listen to, undermined his career, and in some ways I just didn't understand why he felt he had to explain that incident. But he did, and it caused his popularity to plummet. But then it rose again. And for me, George will always be the greatest modern pop singer of all time. Because of that voice, the clarity. I know I'm in for something special here. You are too. The lyrics are sitting in front of me. So let's get going. I'm looking forward. Thank you, Brendan, for that initial review. I'm looking forward because of you.
I'm going to a town that has already been burned down.
Wow.
I'm going to a place that has already been disgraced. I'm gonna see some folks who have already been let down. I'm so tired of America. I'm gonna make it up for all of the Sunday times. I'm gonna make it up for all of the nursery rhymes. They never really seem to want to tell the truth. I'm so tired of you, America. Making my own way home. Ain't gonna be alone. I got a life to live. America, I've got a life to live. Tell me, do you really think you go to hell for having love? Tell me, enough for thinking everything that you've done is good. I really need to know, after soaking the body of Jesus Christ in blood. I'm so tired of you, America. Never see you again, or I might as well. You took advantage of a world that loved you well. I'm going to a town that has already been burnt down. I'm so tired of you, America, making my own way home. But I won't be alone, no, I've got a life to live. America, I've got a life to live. I've got a soul to feed. I've got a dream to hear, and that's all I need. Making my own way home. Ain't gonna be alone. I'm going to a time that a town that has already been burned down.
What do you say after that? Like the rush of emotion, the words that he's singing is almost so poignant. It's very biographical in a way, because I mentioned the incident that belittled his career. And then he talks about America in that way. And then the word love comes behind him. Because George Michael, one thing, even in death, there is life. And your music is that life, that heartbeat that will continue to thrive, to make you so extraordinary for generations of people who listen to your voice to come. You know, people talk about Elvis all the time. And I love Elvis. I grew up with Elvis like many people did. My mother adored him. The only thing I had against Elvis was he never went to England and he never really visited Europe. He just stayed in America, which I thought was very selfish. He didn't ever go to Ireland or England to visit the fans that absolutely worshipped him, but they kept their loyalty. And in the same manner, George Michael, your fans will always keep that loyalty to you. It'll go on and on. Even with me. I can see why that was voted the most popular cover song. And that is the first time I've heard it, honestly. I saw Jesus to a Child, as I said, I debated. But I'm just going to flick through the lyrics. It's very self-evident in a lot of ways why he sung that. But also we've got to take into mind it's an emotional reaction to a lover you had a fight with, and it's about mourning and moving on to bigger and better things. Remember, Michael was deeply in love with, I can't, just because it escapes me, his long-term lover, who's done many interviews after his death and their time together. And through all his ups and downs, I'm going to call him his ex for reference purposes in this video, stuck by him and loved him deeply. Of course you would. George had a profoundness, a depth, a soul that none of us would understand unless you were his lover, shared his life, understood him. But you can't keep a wild cat in a cage or inside a building. It has to get out in freedom and roam the place. And that's what George was just, you know, people are like that. Their testosterone rules their brains. Or on other levels, it was just a case of life is worth living. We're not meant to be the same. And George just didn't fit into really any box other than he was a gay man. And from a gay man, I'm saying that's all he was, because on many other levels, he was an extraordinary lyricist, singer, performer, Unbelievable. And it'll always continue. The song begins. This song is it is by a gentleman called Rufus Wainwright. Do check him out. It begins, I'm going to a town that's already been burnt down. I'm going to a place that's already been disgraced. I'm going to see some folks who have already been let down. So I'm tired of America. And after me mentioning the incident that culled his career for a long, long period, and that interview on Oprah did him no justice, I sat back and I thought, well, if he'd kept his mouth shut, head in the air, he did nothing in that instant other than get caught by the police. And he was set up, deliberately set up, and enticed into a situation that was natural for a gay person to react to, regardless of the situation of where it was. It was just, the whole setup was unbelievable. So he said, I'm tired of America. And I can understand the bad publicity that followed him after that, why this song will be very poignant in how he's singing it. It's not just about his wounded pride. It caused his relationship to break up as well, because I think his ex decided enough is enough here. Good God. But that shouldn't, if I had been George's partner, I would have stood by him and said, you were set up. Now are you going to learn from it? I would have really, really gone through everything with him. Because said, I'm going to make it up for all the Sunday Times. And when I think of the Sunday Times, I think of the English newspaper. And it's run by Murdoch, if I'm correct. And he has a great reputation of building up the stars and then suddenly destroying them. A bit like the Oprah Winfrey interviews. I never liked her I thought she was a sensationalist journalist and nothing more. And it really saddened me. It still affects me, that interview. Every time I talk about George, I think of that interview. And now he mentions the Sunday Times. I'm going to make it up for all the nursery rhymes. They never really seem, he says, to want to tell the truth. I'm so tired of you, America. Even though George didn't write this, he's speaking the words from experience, isn't he? It's almost like déjà vu for him. And nursery rhymes is something that you say, you put words together. So he said, so something like, it probably, what the hell was I thinking? You know, doing what I did. This probably would have ruined me, but I'll get back up and move forward. It is probably the worst rhyme you've ever heard in your life, but I'm just I couldn't even think of a nursery rhyme that would childishly get him out of a situation. But he had built his career. And it's funny how everyone talks about the artiste, but they love scandal. They love to undermine. They love to ruin a good thing. But you can never keep a good thing down. And George proved that by coming back, doing this song and singing it in such a way. Because he said, tell me, do you really think you go to hell for having loved? And he must have asked himself that when his ex said, I've had enough of you. I can't take any more, George. I've stood by you. But enough's enough. Because you can push somebody too far. And like I said before, I would have stood by him. But I would have had the dignity, like his ex, to walk away. Self-preservation is everything in a relationship. And if somebody creates their own hell and sets fire to it, you saw behind him on stage the crucifix coming. George put himself on that cross and set fire to it. We all have the famous Joan of Arc, and they set fire to it because they thought she was a witch and thought she was this, that, and the other. Yet she was a great warrior and woman of her time. And George equally was a great lyricist and songwriter of our time, and still is, even though he's died. But he still pinned himself to the cross and set fire to himself through his own actions, and he knew that. So singing that song with that coming behind him is unbelievable. And then I'm just flicking through the lyrics. You took advantage of a world that loved you well. Here it's self-reflection. He's talking about himself. For sure, he's talking, and that's why these words resonate with him, and he sings it in such a profound way. The choir effect and the orchestra effect is the only way really to have delivered this song in a George Michael way that would have meant something, because each word was cutting him, I'd say, as he went through and did the dress rehearsals and all that. And then even in here it says, I really know after soaking the body of Jesus Christ in blood. He knows that the sacrificial lamb was him throughout his career. He knows that he lived the fast life, the crazy life, the wild life, justifiably so. And that's how aren't we brought up with those rumours of how the rock stars lived their lives? But at the same time, he neglected prayer, and it was prayer that saved him, saved his mental and physical side for a long time. Because, you know, we all say if you cut yourselves, we all drip the same colour of blood. Well, even in prayer, we all pray the same way, because he does go down to say, I'm going to a town that has already been burnt down. I'm so tired of you, America. And I think in a way when George sings this, it's almost like the two fingers to a country that turned round and got wrapped up in all the publicity of one instant. He realized he made the mistake in the Oprah interview, and it just led to his demise. And he probably thought, how can with all the scandals that go on in America, how can I be singled out? You were singled out, I think, George, simply because you weren't American. Everybody loves their own. But it continues, making my way home, my own way home. And you have, George, to the hearts of millions that love you, because it finishes a town that has already been burnt down. Well, even if it was burnt down, I'll finish this long video up by saying England has always stood by you, the rest of the world always stood by you, and America bounced back with their fans supporting you and went, compared to what happens today, George's incident was minuscule, but at the time it was so graphic and so... And in the end of that stage performance, we're left with the one thing we all feel for this man through his songs. Going to a town, he came home, and then he was laid to rest in peace, unfortunately. But still, that word says everything about the song, about how he performed it, about what it meant to him, in my own estimation, and finally, how we feel about him. We love you, George. We always will. Take care. Thanks for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Look forward to listening and interacting with you about this video. Take care.